their contact. I know. If you love dance, go to YouTube right now and my God, find excerpts of this wonderful show. The revival of Showboat with Hal Prince, and is both director and choreographer of the revival of The Music Man with my friend Craig Bierko, who she chose. Who knew he could be an amazing music man he was? Of course, one of the best musicals ever on Broadway, The Producers. He's a 5-time Tony Award winner, 4 for Best Choreography, won as Best Director of a Musical for The Producers. And she is here from Broadway. Yeah. We're here in LA, we don't care about movies and stuff, but if we're in Broadway, to talk to us about the wonderful Vincent Minnelli musical, and of course her work. Ladies and gentlemen, Susan Stroman. Broadway shows. Yeah. That excitement, of course, the show is starting. I'm like, Susan Stroman. I see Susan Stroman. Anyway, it's very exciting to have you here and talk about the musical, The Bandwagon. First of all, I'm going to start with, you were, of course, lucky enough, you worked with Liza Minnelli.
Yes, and of course I did Stepping Out at Radio City Music Hall with Liza, and it was an incredible time, and she would talk about her father. She loved her father so much. So she would speak of him, and she would always talk about The Bandwagon, because she used to follow him around during the filming of The Bandwagon. She was very small, of course, but she remembers it, and he actually would make some of the costumes for her as a little girl. So he would bring home some of Sid Teresa's costumes.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Well, what is it about, I mean, Vincent Minnelli did so many great musicals, and we were talking on the phone about the difference between a movie like Singing in the Rain and The Bandwagon. But what's so great about The Bandwagon is, as you were saying, it has real elements of a real Broadway show.
Well, yes, when I got the call for The Bandwagon, I said yes, because a lot of things that happen in The Bandwagon really do happen to Broadway folk, to theater folk. And of course, the 2 lead characters that are played by Nanette Fabre and Oscar Levant are really Betty and Adolph Green, and it's based on them. And yes, I mean, they're incredible. And so they wrote The Bandwagon, but they were able to take a nod to themselves with these 2 characters of what it takes to put on a musical. And of course, the Jose Ferrer is what Jack
yes
is what's
Buchanan.
Thank you, Jack Buchanan. He's based on Jose Ferrer, who had about 3 Broadway shows running, and he was producing and he was starring, so they tap into that. So, and then the idea of a movie star coming to Broadway to star in a Broadway show, which is of course Fred Astaire's part. So everything about this movie I can relate to, and even that idea of a show being in trouble out of town, as it is in The Bandwagon, and what are you going to do about it?
And you had an experience when you were doing Crazy for You, so they're trying to mount the show out of town.
Yes. Yeah, we were opening in Washington, D.C., and when you're doing a show in New York, you rehearse in New York, and then you take it out of town, and sort of the last day in the rehearsal studio, everybody goes forward, the set designer and the stage manager, and everybody goes forward to that city to prepare for the tech for you. And but we run it in the studio for the producers and investors, and at the end of that day, we realized the second act was no good, and we had to do something about it. And it wasn't until we saw it up on its feet with sort of an audience of about 25 people. So we got on the Amtrak train, and between New York and Washington, D.C., we rewrote the second act of Crazy for You. And it was so intense, and I remember thinking it was so brave of everyone, and everyone was there trying to work it out. The writer, Ken Ludwig, and Mike Ockrent, and myself, and and our costume designer, how we were going to save. We didn't want to tell the producers we were going to throw out, $300,000 worth of costumes. So it was wild. And then when we showed up in DC, we said to the stage manager, "There's a whole new second act." But thank God we did that, because then Crazy Few ran for 5.5 years at the Shubert Theater in New York. But had we not been done that, we wrote the whole second act on the Amtrak train. I don't think that would have happened.
You said there are those elements. There are some scenes where, the cast sitting around a piano, singing songs in between the show, and you said,
yes, that really happened. Yes, even when producers out of town, we were in Chicago, and we had that very first preview, and I didn't know what we had. I just know, you sort of immerse yourself into a big bucket of talent filled with actors and musicians and musical directors and writers, and you don't really come up for air until that first preview. And to hear the audience on that first preview of the producers in Chicago, it was amazing. And I was in the back, and I couldn't believe it, because everybody said it wouldn't work. Why would you do it? Why would you take that movie and make a musical out of it? It's never going to work. So then when I heard the audience, I just couldn't believe it. It was so exciting. But then I thought, well, where is everybody? And they were all in one hotel room of one of the gypsies, like in the bandwagon, and everybody was in there, and they were all singing songs, and there was a piano in there, and everybody, the entire company, was inside this one hotel room. And so, it was very much like the bandwagon. You all go in together, and you wish, if you do musical theater, you just wish you had underscoring your whole life. Yeah. There was someone playing the piano, no matter what you did.
And I want to talk a little bit about the choreography, which is Michael Kidd, and what is his place in musical theater and the Girl Hunt Ballet? But first Michael Kidd, and then Girl Hunt Ballet.
Well, Michael Kidd, he's amazing. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers is spectacular. And it's so athletic, and so he really choreographs for men beautifully. It's so strong, very strong. But he is a storyteller too, and everything he does is every movement has a motivation that is about the plot and about the storytelling. And he was loved and admired, and I got to meet him once, actually during Crazy Few, and that was quite wonderful to be able to hug Michael Kidd, but because I admired him so much, and his work in the movie here is spectacular. Dancing in the Dark. Oh my! And what I love about Dancing in the Dark too is they first walk through Central Park, and there are people dancing, and these two incredible dancers, Sid and Fred, don't dance. They just sort of walk through these dancers, and they come to a clearing where they're all by themselves. And then you see them think the dance, you see them think the movement, and all of a sudden Sid starts to dance, and then Fred immediately starts to dance, and then they're dancing together. But I love the way that starts, because all the beginning of the movie, they wonder if they could dance together, and then you see them think it and make it happen, and that was Michael Kidd.
But what's the complexity? Of course, Sid Charisse is the classic thing. She's taller than Fred Astaire. And what is that? Does that pose an issue in this film, or does it make them more of a couple?
Well, I think when she was hired, Fred was worried about how tall she was, and he would talk about it so much that Minnelli put a bit into the movie where he's on a staircase and he keeps trying to step up to see how tall he would be next to her. That was sort of a spontaneous thing. It's just because he talked about it in rehearsal so much. But of course, you'll see she dances in flat shoes all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think in reality, when you partner someone, you do want the woman not to be taller than you are.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to sort of contrast and compare. I know it's not fair, but Singing in the Rain, Sid Charisse, Gene Kelly versus the Girl Hunt Ballet. Just for me personally, don't get mad at me, I prefer this because I think it's a better story, and I prefer the dance. I just think it's a little bit more exciting.
Well, the whole Girl Hunt Ballet is like a takeoff on the Mickey Spillane, the detective,
Yeah.
and actually Fred is playing a detective. He's not in his top hat and tails, so it's great to see him performing another character. And then she plays this mystery woman. And I think this is the first movie, too, where Sid has been given a part to actually speak and have a character all the way through, and she did a beautiful job with it.
And do you think, I obviously have no idea, but when they're dancing, do you think they're dancing to playback? How would because I have to say again, you know, that girl, the dynamic of when she is like going towards him with the hips and,
I know.
you know, are they dancing, do you think they're dancing to playback there?
I think it's a combination, because I think when you choreograph for the film, when a lot of times you will do things with just piano and drums, and then the orchestrator goes back in, and you know, when Fred would leap in the air, then the whole orchestra leaps in the air, or when Sid kicks her leg, the whole orchestra goes bam. So a lot of times they wait to put that in until after it's done. But they would be doing playback of probably a small band, and then they would add the big orchestra when they see the whole thing.
So let's talk a little bit about Fred Astaire. You talked about the word that you used, I wrote it down, is that he danced with musicality. And nobody has captured that like Fred Astaire. What was it about, what is it about Fred Astaire that just is so sublime?
Well, for one thing, he sits in the pocket of the rhythm of the music. It's just like right in the beat of the music. He's so musical, and he was very collaborative with his choreographers and also with his orchestrators and his arrangers, and very much if he does a tap tacit, you know, that was talked about, and he wants the band to drop out just so you hear his feet tapping. And so it was a very collaborative situation with the music department with Fred all the time. But there's something about him. He has such a grace and elegance, and he sort of looks like he's floating in the air. But it's all within the music, and you don't see that with other performers.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, everybody has his favorite partner of Fred Astaire. I love Sid Reese. I know some people love Ginger Rogers, but do you have a favorite with him?
Well, I love Rita Hayworth, and I think Ginger. I think Swing Time is probably my favorite movie of all. And just that idea of like pick yourself up and dust yourself off and start all over again, where he pretends he doesn't dance, and she's a dance teacher, and of course he sweeps her off her feet. But just I think that those two dancing together in that is extraordinary.
And the Bandwagon is, I mean, essentially it's a comedy. It's, you know, it's got a lot of laughs in it. And you obviously have a lot of experience choreographing, directing the producers with Mel Brooks. And just tell me, like, how did that come about with Mel Brooks?
Well, I think Mel had seen Crazy Few, and he had seen. I did a Christmas Carol at Madison Square Gardens, which ran for like 10 years, and Mel had seen that. And you know, Mel is wonderful. He's so collaborative, and I think he just wanted to be with people who understand musical theater. And I think for years, people have been telling him to try and make a musical out of the producers. And he just wasn't ready. And finally, he was ready, and he was ready to write it all, write the music, write the lyrics, do the whole thing. Because all of Mel's movies, you know, he does write songs in all those movies that you see.